Okay, so we had technical difficulties, so now I'm going to keep on reading. Last one was the rainfall. And now we have, ooh, what's that? Thunder. Thunder. I can't watch you, still I know you're there. The lightning blinks before you, boom. You're nature's stormy pair. What's next? Oh, that's a pretty picture. Tiny seeds, you're hidden deep. Still I know you're there. And one day soon you'll stretch and bloom as flowers I can share. Isn't that true? You put the seeds in the ground and then the flowers grow up. They're hidden, just like sometimes we can't see God. Snowflakes, I can't trace your crystals, still I know you're there. You've been designed so I won't find one like you anywhere. Did you know that every snowflake is different? Just like every person is different. So it says here, God, I can't see you, still I know you're there. You're in the love I give away, the sparkle when I care. And if your love is what I show, my heart is fuller still, I know. So that's how we see God, when we show his love, when we love somebody, when we care for somebody. And I know you're a really super special, caring kind of guy. So you give your love to your friends and to your family, and they'll know that God lives in your life. Love you, Bubba. Okay, what other one? Have you ever read this story called A Wonky Donkey? I've never heard this story before, but I saw the book and it looked pretty funny. So let's see. The Wonky Donkey. Let's see what this story says. The Wonky Donkey. It looks like the bird fell down and bonked his head. So, the Wonky Donkey. What's a Wonky Donkey? I'm sure we're going to find out. Let's see. So, one day, I was walking down the road and I see a lot of things in this picture. I see a donkey sign and I see a bumblebee and a road and a bird. I saw a donkey. I saw a donkey. Hee-haw. But he only had 3 legs. Oh my. He was a wonky donkey. I guess that's like a wobbly donkey. He was a wonky donkey. I was suddenly walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw. He only had 3 legs and 1 eye. Poor donkey. Let's see what this guy looks like. He was a winky wonky donkey. Ah, if he's only got 1 eye, he's a winky wonky donkey. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye, and he liked to listen to country music. Yee-haw! He was a honky-tonky, winky-wonky donkey. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye, and he liked to listen to country music. And he was quite tall and thin. Let's see. So that makes him, what does it make him? A lanky, honky, tonky, winky, wonky donkey. That's what it makes him. Let's see. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye, and he liked to listen to country music. He was quite tall and slim, and he smelt really, really bad. He was he farted and almost killed the birdie. He was a stinky dinky, lanky honky tonky, winky wonky donkey. That's what he was. So, let's see. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye. He liked to listen to country music. He was quite tall and slim. He smelled really, really bad. And that morning, he'd got up early and he hadn't had any coffee. What does that make him? Well, let's see. What does that make him? He was a cranky, stinky, dinky, lanky, honky, tonky, winky, wonky, donkey. That's what he was. So, I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye. He liked to listen to country music. He was quite tall and slim. He smelled really, really bad. And that morning he got up real early and still hadn't had his coffee. And he was always getting up to mischief. What does that make him? Ooh, what kind of trouble is he in today? He was a hanky-panky, cranky, stinky, dinky, lanky, honky, tonky, winky, wonky, donkey. That's what he was. So, let's see. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! He only had 3 legs, 1 eye. He liked to listen to country music. He was quite tall and slim. He smelled really, really bad. And that morning he got up early and still hadn't had any coffee. He was always getting up to mischief. But he was quite good looking. So what does that make him? Let's see. That makes him a spunky, hanky-panky, cranky, stinky, dinky, lanky, honky, tonky, winky, wonky, donkey. That's what it makes him. Let's see. I was walking down the road and I saw a donkey. Hee-haw! That was a fun book to read. Let's see. I have another book, but it's kind of long. Are you ready for it? I heard you liked Captain Underpants, and I'm sending you a whole bunch of Captain Underpants books. But hang on, I'll get the one I want to read. Here we go. Brady, The Adventures of Captain Underpants. Let's see. George and Harold. Meet George and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top, and Harold is the one on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Now, remember that now. Which one is which? We got George and we got Harold, okay? So, George and Harold were best friends. They had a lot in common. They lived right next door to each other, and they were both in the same 4th grade class. Isn't that the grade Addison's in? At Jerome Horowitz Elementary School. George and Harold were usually responsible kids. That means they were good kids. And whenever anything bad happened, George and Harold were usually responsible. Uh-oh, it sounds like they're troublemakers. But don't get the wrong idea about these two. George and Harold were actually very nice boys. No matter what everybody else thought, they were good, sweet, and lovable. Well, okay, maybe they weren't so sweet and lovable, but they were good nonetheless. It's just that George and Harold each had a silly streak. I know somebody else who's got a silly streak. I think it's you, Brady. It was a mile long, their silly streak, and usually that silly streak was hard to control. Sometimes it got them into trouble, and once it got them into big, big trouble. But before I can tell you that story, I've got to tell you this story. There's Harold and George. So, chapter 2 is about the Treehouse Comics. After a hard day of cracking jokes, pulling pranks, and causing mayhem at school, that's their treehouse, George and Harold liked to rush to the old treehouse in George's backyard. And inside the treehouse were 2 big old fluffy chairs, a table, a cupboard crammed with junk food, and a padlocked crate filled with pencils, pens, and stacks of paper. Now, Harold loved to draw, and George loved to make up stories, and together the two boys spent hours and hours writing and drawing their own stories. Over the years, they created hundreds of their own comic books, and they starred in dozens of their own superhero stories. First, there was Dogman, and then came Timmy the Talking Toilet, and who could forget about the amazing Cow Lady? But the all-time greatest superhero they ever made up had to be the amazing Captain Underpants. That's where Captain Underpants came from? George and they made him up. Cool. So George came up with the idea. Most superheroes look like they're flying around in their underwear, he said. Well, this guy actually is flying around in his underwear. And the two boys laughed and they laughed. Yeah, said Harold. He could fight with wedgie power. George and Harold spent the entire afternoons writing and drawing the comic adventures of Captain Underpants. He was the coolest superhero ever. Luckily for the boys, the secretary at Jerome Horowitz Elementary School was much too busy to keep an eye on the copy machine, so whenever they got a chance, Harold and George would sneak into the office and copy off a bunch of copies of their Captain Underpants adventure, and then they sold their copies to friends all around town for 50 cents apiece. So, this is the Adventures of Captain Underpants, written by George and Harold. Oh boy, I'm going to let you look through all of the comics here. This whole story, they wrote a whole story. Wow. That's a big long book that they wrote. Oh, do you see this guy up here in the window? Let's see. That guy up there, that's Mr. Krupp. That's the principal of their school. He was the meanest principal in the whole school. And he hated children playing. And guess which kids he hated the most? George and Harold. And he hated their Captain Underpants comic books. And so he said, the principal said, I'm going to get those boys. One of these days, I'm going to get those boys. That's what he said. Well, the boys got into trouble. Wow, this is a long book. You know what? I'm going to send you these books, and maybe Sissy can read them, or Mommy can read them to you after bed. But that's just a taste of the Captain Underpants books. And when you get just a little bit older, you'll be able to read them yourself. I love you, sweetie. I hope you like the other 2 books that I read to you, and you be a good boy. Love you, and I will see you soon. At the end of the summertime, I'm going to see you. And I want to see how much fun we can have together. Maybe I'll teach you how to ride a bicycle by then. That's a good idea. Let's learn to ride a bike when Nana comes up there. That's a good plan. I love you, Brady. Addison, I'm sending you a letter with a little special something in it. I love you guys. Be good. Give Mommy and Daddy a hug and a kiss from me. Talk to you soon. Bye.